You've probably met someone who just gets it. They walk into a room, read the energy instantly, say exactly the right thing at the right moment, and somehow everyone trusts them without knowing why. They're not the loudest person in the room. They're not even the smartest on paper. But something about them is different. Something quiet and rare. That thing has a name, emotional intelligence. And here's what nobody tells you. Most people who have it don't know they have it. In fact, the higher your emotional intelligence, the more likely you are to second-guess yourself and wonder why you feel things so differently than everyone around you. Today, I'm going to break down 7 signs that your emotional intelligence is higher than you think. And I'm not talking about feel-good, vague advice like, you're empathetic. I'm talking about specific scientifically backed patterns of behavior and thought that researchers have linked to genuinely high EQ, patterns you might have written off as personality quirks, or even weaknesses your whole life. Stay with me through sign number 4. That one hits different. That's the one most high EQ people have spent years trying to fix without realizing it's actually their greatest strength. Don't skip it. Sign number 1. You feel other people's emotions before they say a single word. You walk into a meeting, everyone's smiling, the boss is making jokes. On the surface, everything looks fine, but something feels off to you. There's a tension under the surface, a weight in the air, and 2 days later you find out that half the team is about to get laid off. How did you know? People with high emotional intelligence have what psychologists call somatic empathy. Their nervous system literally picks up on microsignals that most brains filter out. The slight tension in someone's jaw, the half-second delay before a smile reaches someone's eyes, the way a person's voice drops just slightly when they say, "I'm fine." Most people's brains ignore these signals. They're too busy processing their own thoughts, their next sentence, their own performance in the social situation. But your brain doesn't do that. It's running a constant background scan of every person in the room. A study published in the journal Psychological Science found that high EQ individuals process facial microexpressions at a speed and accuracy that most people never achieve, even with training. You're not imagining things when you sense a vibe. You're reading data that others simply can't access. The downside? It's exhausting. You walk out of crowded rooms feeling like you just ran a marathon and you're not sure why. You absorb the moods of people around you. A friend's anxiety becomes your anxiety. A stranger's sadness on the subway lingers with you for an hour after you've left. Sign number 2. You've been told you were too sensitive your whole life. Your parents said it, a teacher probably said it, an ex definitely said it, and you believed them. You thought something was wrong with you, that you needed to toughen up, build thicker walls, stop letting things affect you so much. Here's the truth. Sensitivity isn't a character flaw. It's a neurological feature. Research from the University of British Columbia has shown that people who score highest on emotional intelligence tests are also the most sensitive to emotional stimuli. Not because they're weak, because their brains are literally wired to process emotional information more deeply. Think about it this way. Most people's emotional radar picks up signals on a scale of 1 to 10. Yours goes to 30. That means you feel joy more deeply, yes, but you also feel disappointment, rejection, and conflict at an intensity that other people genuinely cannot comprehend. This is the same trait that makes great writers, great therapists, great leaders, and great parents. The people who changed the world weren't people who didn't feel things deeply. They were people who learned to channel what they felt into something that mattered. So the next time someone tells you you're too sensitive, smile quietly. Because what they're really saying is that you feel things at a resolution they can't render. Sign number 3, you pause before you react. Even when everything in you wants to explode, someone cuts you off in traffic. A colleague takes credit for your work in front of your boss. A person you love says something that cuts right through you. And in that white-hot second, you feel the reaction rising. The anger, the hurt, the urge to say something you can't take back, but you don't. Not immediately, you feel it, you notice it, and then you make a choice. That pause, that tiny gap between stimulus and response, is one of the most reliable signs of high emotional intelligence ever identified in psychological research. Viktor Frankl wrote about it. Daniel Goleman built an entire framework around it. And neuroscientists have actually mapped it. It's the difference between your amygdala, the brain's alarm system, hijacking your behavior, versus your prefrontal cortex, the rational decision-making center, stepping in before you do damage you'll regret. Most people live in reaction. Something happens, they respond, no gap, no filter, just output. But high EQ individuals have developed, often without even trying, a built-in microsecond buffer. This is why you're the person people call during a crisis. Not because you don't feel the panic, you do, but you can hold the panic and still function. That's rare, that's powerful. Sign number 4. You struggle more than most people when you act against your values. This one surprises people. You'd think high emotional intelligence would make life easier. And in some ways it does. But in one specific, deeply uncomfortable way, it makes things harder. When you act in a way that doesn't align with who you are, the dissonance is unbearable. Maybe you told a small lie to avoid conflict and couldn't sleep that night. Maybe you stayed silent when you should have spoken up and felt sick about it for a week. Psychologists call this moral sensitivity, and it's directly correlated with emotional intelligence. Research from the University of Toronto found that high EQ individuals experience significantly stronger negative emotional responses to their own ethical violations than low EQ individuals do. This is exhausting. It can make you feel like you're holding yourself to an impossible standard, and sometimes other people don't understand why you're upset about something they see as minor. But here's what this trait actually means. Your internal compass is calibrated with extraordinary precision. You can't fake your way through life the way a lot of people do. You feel the gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be immediately and intensely. That's not a burden. That's integrity operating at the neurological level. Sign number 5. You can hold two completely opposite feelings at the same time without breaking. Most people need emotional clarity. They need to know if they're happy or sad, if they like someone or they don't. The middle ground makes them uncomfortable, but you live in the middle ground constantly. You can love someone and be furious at them at the same time. You can be genuinely excited about an opportunity and completely terrified of it simultaneously. Psychologists call this emotional complexity or dialectical thinking. And research from the University of Washington has found that people who can experience mixed emotions have better psychological resilience, make more nuanced decisions, and handle uncertainty far more effectively. Think about what this means practically. When everyone else is forcing a binary choice, you're seeing the full picture. When others are reacting from a single emotion, you're integrating multiple perspectives. When the world is screaming, "Pick a side," you're the person in the room who actually understands why both sides feel the way they feel. Sign number 6. You remember conversations other people forgot 5 minutes after they happened. You ran into someone 3 months ago. You spoke for 12 minutes at a party. They told you their sister was sick and they were stressed about a job interview. You remembered. You asked about it the next time you saw them, and the look on their face told you that nobody ever remembered things like that about them. This isn't just a good memory. It's emotional attentiveness. When most people are in a conversation, a significant portion of their brain is still occupied with themselves, how they are coming across, what they are going to say next, whether the other person likes them. But high EQ individuals are actually present in conversations in a way most people aren't. Research on social cognition has shown that emotionally engaged listening activates memory centers in the brain far more powerfully than passive hearing. You're not just listening to the words, you're tracking the story, the emotion behind the story, and the person telling it. People don't just feel liked around you, they feel seen. There's a difference, and most people can't manufacture that on purpose. You do it without trying. That's the thing about high EQ. It doesn't perform, it just shows up. Sign number 7. You are your own most reliable emotional analyst. Here's where it all comes together. Most people spend enormous energy trying to understand other people, analyzing motives, reading subtext, wondering why someone acted the way they did, but they spend almost no time understanding themselves. Their own reactions surprise them. Their own patterns repeat without recognition. Their own emotional triggers catch them off guard again and again. High emotional intelligence flips this. Yes, you understand other people deeply, but what separates genuinely high EQ individuals from everyone else is that they understand themselves with the same clarity. When you feel a sudden drop in mood, you can usually trace it back to its source. When you react strongly to something, you know whether that reaction is about the present situation or something older. Psychologists call this meta-emotion, the ability to observe and analyze your own emotional states in real time. Research from Yale Center for Emotional Intelligence found that this self-analytical capacity is the single most predictive factor of emotional intelligence across all demographics. Not empathy, not sensitivity, not communication skills, Self-awareness. Because here's the truth. You cannot understand other people at a deep level without first understanding yourself. And you cannot regulate your emotions, make clear decisions, or maintain real relationships without being able to look inward honestly and without judgment. This is the hardest one for most people, not because it requires unusual intelligence, but because it requires unusual honesty. You have to be willing to see yourself clearly, including the parts that aren't flattering, including the defense mechanisms and the contradictions and the moments when you weren't who you wanted to be. And you have to be able to hold all of that without crumbling or shutting down. If you can do that, even imperfectly, even most of the time, you are operating at a level of emotional maturity that most people never reach. Here's what I want you to walk away with. Emotional intelligence is not about being nice. It's not about never getting angry or always knowing what to say. It's about having a depth of access to your own inner world and the inner worlds of people around you that changes how you move through life. The signs we talked about today: feeling things before they're spoken, carrying sensitivity as a strength, pausing when others explode, breaking when your values bend, holding complexity without collapsing, remembering what matters to people, and knowing yourself honestly. These are not small things. These are the qualities that make someone a person others trust with their real lives, not their highlight reels, their actual lives. The world needs more of this, not less. And if these signs resonated with you today, don't downplay it. Don't file it under, well, I just overthink things, or I'm just too emotional. Recognize it for what it is, a capacity that most people spend years trying to develop and never quite get there. You already have it. The only question is whether you're going to own it. Drop a number in the comments from 1 to 7. Tell me which sign hit closest to home. I read every single one, and if you know someone who needs to hear this today, send it to them. Sometimes the most emotional, intelligent thing you can do is remind someone that what they thought was a weakness is actually the thing that makes them rare.